Hi, and thanks for looking in on our weekly Dvar Torah, this time on video, for the first time for me, doing our video Dvar Torah, and we hope that this will become a regular feature of our TE mail each week. This coming Shabbat is both Shabbat Tzav, we read Tzav, the second Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, but it is also, and perhaps more importantly, Shabbat HaGadol, the great Shabbat, the Shabbat that occurs right before Passover, which this year will begin on Friday night, April 3rd. And of course, we won't have services that night. Shabbat HaGadol was traditionally the time back in Europe where on Shabbat afternoon, the rabbi would be called upon to lecture at great length on the laws of keeping kosher for Passover. And in fact, in the afternoon, there is a tradition that you start reading the beginning of the answer to the 4 questions from the Haggadah. So this is really our last stop before going full long into the Passover holiday. Now, there's an interesting connection between the Torah portion and the coming of Pesach and the special Haftarah for Shabbat HaGadol. The Torah portion, Tzav, deals almost exclusively with the sacrificial system. It goes into excruciating detail about how the Kohanim are supposed to butcher the sacrifices, and what do you do with the liver, and what do you do with the kidneys, and all kinds of things that most of us don't find in the kosher butcher store these days, or in any other kind of butcher store in the Western world. But in the beginning of the Torah portion, the word Tzav, which means command, Moses is told to command Aaron and the priestly group to light the fire on the altar. And in the 5th verse of our Torah portion, Leviticus 6:5, we read, V'ha'esh al hamizbeach tukadbo lo tichbeh, and the fire shall be put upon the altar, and it shall not go out, or you shall not allow it to go out, depending on how you interpret that word. And in the very next verse, we hear, Ve'esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh, and an esh tamid, a perpetual fire, related, of course, to the concept of a ner tamid, a perpetual light in the synagogue, shall be lit on the altar, and once again, lo tichbeh. So twice within 2 verses in the Bible, we're told, lo tichbeh, you're not allowed to let the altar fire go out. Rashi says that this means that anyone who allows the altar fire to go out, or who, God forbid, causes the altar fire to go out, is in fact violating 2 commandments, 2 negative commandments, not 1. Which 2 negative commandments? Well, it says you shall not allow it to go out twice. So it seems to be the same negative commandment repeated. And that's a little tough to understand, right? We believe in conservation of language in the Torah and that there's no extraneous words. So why does it have to say lo tichbeh twice? And why does Rashi understand that that's a violation of not 1, but 2 commandments with 1 act? I think on this Shabbat Tzav, that is also Shabbat HaGadol, our answer comes from this week's special Haftarah. The special Haftarah is taken from the 3rd chapter, the last chapter of the book of Malachi, who in most books is the last of the prophets. And I think you'll find this familiar from the Pesach Seder, because the last verses of Malachi read, V'hinei anochi sholeach lechem et Eliyah hanavi. Behold, I am sending to you Elijah the prophet. And of course, this is the text that we read as we are opening the door of the house or the door to the patio to allow Elijah the prophet to come in and herald the time of the Messiah. And of course, that's when parents play little tricks with the kids about drinking that 5th glass that's on the Seder table. And Malachi goes on, and we read this also at the Seder, V'heshiv alev avot al habanim, v'lev banim al ha'avotam. You will return or turn the hearts of the parents to the children, and also the hearts of the children to their parents. That's part of our messianic vision of what it's like when Elijah is going to come. And I think this business of turning the hearts of the parents to the children and the children to the parents, this transmission of our tradition from generation to generation, that is, after all, the point of the Seder that is coming up next week, is the answer to this riddle of not allowing the fire to go out twice. Because in fact, there's two fires. There's the Jewish fire that is in the hearts of the children, which must be ignited by the parents and kept going by the parents through their example, through giving a Jewish education. And if you no longer have small children or small grandchildren, you have the responsibility to help support those institutions of Jewish life which provide for the children. But at the same time, the children, their presence, involvement with the younger generation, ignites the fires in the altars of the hearts of the older generation as well. That by supporting Jewish education and supporting those who are coming after us, we are also supporting ourselves. And the younger folks have the responsibility for keeping the older generations involved in Jewish life. It's a mistake to have a synagogue or a Jewish organization that is not involving children, but it's a mistake to have one that only involves children. And so there are two altars, the altar of the parents and the altar of the children, and each are responsible for keeping the other one lit. And so as we approach Shabbat Tzav, this Shabbat which teaches us about keeping the fire of Torah abundant and lit all the time in our lives, and as we approach Pesach, we understand this double lesson of the parents turning to the children turning to the parents, and each generation keeping the fire of Torah alive in the other. Have a wonderful Shabbat at the end of this week, and have a kosher and happy Pesach.